Forget the PR spin. Forget the sterilized press releases that all the teams are just pushing out of the motorhomes this morning. Look, if you watched the Austrian Grand Prix this weekend, you didn't just watch a motor race.
No, absolutely not.
You witnessed the entire technical hierarchy of this grid get picked up, violently shaken, and just thrown completely on its head. I mean, I'm still struggling to comprehend the whiplash of it all.
Yeah, it was staggering.
Right. We went from a Ferrari masterclass in Barcelona, where they looked genuinely untouchable, to watching them practically trip over their own front wings in Spielberg, and that happened in the space of exactly 7 days. From kings of the grid to absolute clowns in a week.
It really is a complete structural shift in the narrative.
Totally.
What we saw in Austria was the brutal, uncompromising reality of thermal degradation, right?
Sure.
And blistering track temperatures. It just exposed these fundamental flaws in the car concepts.
Yeah, the paddock as a whole just completely failed to understand the assignment.
Exactly. I mean, teams arrived with these beautifully calculated, pristine simulation models based on the data they gathered in Spain. And the Red Bull Ring just chewed those strategies up and spit them out.
Yeah, the margins are they are microscopic right now.
The margins between getting the setup right and completely destroying a race weekend are basically zero.
Well, look, I want to talk about those microscopic margins because we have to start at the very front of the grid. You cannot properly analyze this race win without tearing into exactly how pole position was decided on Saturday.
Right. The microsector debate.
And honestly, it infuriates me. Max Verstappen loses the rear end, goes off and brings out a yellow flag. And George Russell, he lifts his foot just enough in one specific microsector to satisfy the telemetry requirement, right? Keeping his lap alive and securing pole position.
Yes, he did.
Meanwhile, you've got Kimi, Antonelli, and Verstappen, who are absolutely flying on their laps, and they are completely compromised. It feels cheap. I mean, you are robbing the fans of a true shootout because of a telemetry logging technicality.
Okay, hold on. I need to stop you there. Because you are directing your anger at the exact wrong target here.
How? He gamed the system.
Russell did exactly what a fiercely intelligent veteran driver is supposed to do in that scenario. He played the regulations perfectly. You're angry at the player when you really should be furious at the game itself.
But wait, explain this to me, because if you're a casual fan watching at home, you don't understand how a driver intentionally games a yellow flag. Like, how do you even measure a meaningful lift?
It comes down to how the FIA logs data.
Yeah.
The track isn't just one continuous loop of information, right? It's broken down into hundreds of tiny data logging segments we call them microsectors.
Right.
The rulebook strictly states that under a single yellow flag, a driver has to demonstrate a meaningful reduction in speed through the affected area.
Which just sounds so subjective.
Well, it's measured via telemetry traces, throttle position, and braking input. Russell, with all his veteran experience, he knew exactly where the microsector lines were drawn for that specific corner. So when the yellow flashed, he didn't abandon the lap. He lifted off the throttle for exactly enough milliseconds to register a dip on the telemetry trace within that specific microsector, and then he just instantly buried his foot back into the throttle.
So he's not even driving the track at that point. He's driving the data logger.
Precisely. And that is brilliant racecraft.
Yeah.
Is the system flawed? Yes, immensely flawed. We clearly need instantaneous double yellow flags for danger zones that just automatically invalidate the entire overarching sector time.
Right. Take it out of the driver's hands entirely.
Exactly. It shouldn't be up to the driver to guess the exact millisecond of a lift. But you cannot penalize Russell for reading the technical regulations better than literally everyone else on the grid.
I can't accept a rule book that ruins the integrity of the session like that. We want to see who is the fastest on a hot track, not who is best at manipulating a throttle trace. Antonelli was robbed of a front row start, and that frustration cascades directly into Sunday's race execution. Yes, I will concede that Russell drove a highly defensive, very intelligent race. He managed the gaps to get the win. But look at the underlying tension in that Mercedes garage right now. Antonelli finishes third, but in that first stint, the rookie had blistering, terrifying race pace.
He was very quick, yeah.
He was managing his tires noticeably better than Russell was.
He was managing them better, sure. But race pace in a vacuum does not win Grand Prix.
No.
I mean, pace is just potential. Racecraft is the actual application of it.
But Antonelli was robbed.
Antonelli was gated by circumstance. First, yeah, the controversial qualifying flag puts him on the back foot, starting fourth. But then, look at the mathematics of the virtual safety car. Carlos Sainz loses electronic power, and the VSC triggers at the exact wrong moment for Antonelli's pit window.
Oh, it was the worst possible second.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It completely neutralized his pace advantage. It killed his ability to either aggressively undercut the cars ahead of him or stretch the stint to overcut them. He was frozen in place.
Which leads me to this conclusion, and look, I stand by it. Kimi Antonelli is already the faster driver at Mercedes, right now, today.
Oh, Connor.
I'm serious. If you strip away the bad luck, the VSC timing, the yellow flag in qualifying, he has more raw, terrifying speed than George Russell.
That is an incredibly reckless take.
It's the truth.
Raw pace means absolutely nothing if you don't have Russell's situational awareness, right, and his ability to dictate the terms of engagement. Russell knew exactly what his tire delta was. On lap 12, when Verstappen and Hamilton started fighting behind him, Russell didn't just drive fast.
No, he played games.
He recognized the strategic threat. He intentionally deployed his electrical energy to open up a 3-second gap, breaking the DRS toe so they couldn't drag each other up to his gearbox.
Yeah.
Antonelli is fast, yeah, but Russell earned that win with his brain.
Fine. I will give the veteran the credit for playing masterful defense. But while Mercedes was up front playing tactical geometry games, the guy they were desperately checking their mirrors for was driving like a mechanical force of nature. Max Verstappen.
Oh, unbelievable.
The hunt we saw from the Dutchman on Sunday was relentless, especially after the complete disaster he had on Saturday.
Saturday was a masterclass in damage limitation for Red Bull. I mean, he had a total mechanical failure on the rear wing.
Right, the DRS.
Yeah, the DRS actuator. The hydraulic piston that opens and closes the flap. It just wouldn't seal properly.
And what does that actually do to the car in the corners for the listener? Like, what is the physical feeling for the driver?
Well, when that flap is fluttering or it's stuck slightly open, you are bleeding critical downforce. The air isn't pressing the rear tires into the asphalt. So heading into the high-speed sweeping corners of the Red Bull Ring, the rear of the car wants to constantly step out.
So it's completely unstable.
You are essentially trying to corner a cruise missile on ice skates. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
The fact that Verstappen managed to qualify 5th with a compromised rear wing was a miracle of car control.
But Sunday was a different story entirely. He wasn't just fast. He was like a shark smelling blood in the water. It was this constant, inescapable pressure applied to the cars ahead of him. He didn't just want a podium, right? He wanted to physically and mentally break the drivers in front of him.
Yeah, he was on a mission.
He hunts down LECLERC, he blasts past Antonelli, and then he relentlessly pressures Lewis Hamilton until Hamilton physically cracks and pits early on lap 12. Verstappen crosses the line in second place, mere tenths of a second ahead of Antonelli.
And we really have to look at the strategic ripple effect of that aggression from Max.
Totally.
By forcing the issue so early in that first stint, Max completely shattered the calculated pit windows of everyone around him.
He blew up the spreadsheets.
Exactly. When he pressured Hamilton into boxing on lap 12 just to defend track position, he triggered a chain reaction that ruined Ferrari's entire afternoon. Verstappen didn't just beat them on the asphalt. He forced the Mercedes and Ferrari pit walls into absolute panic reactions.
Which perfectly bridges us to the most baffling story of the weekend, honestly. The catastrophic meltdown inside the Ferrari garage. I mean, I need you to help me process this because the math isn't mathing.
It was bad.
Hamilton wins in Barcelona. They're hailed as engineering geniuses. They bring a massively hyped, upgraded power unit to Austria. They qualify second and third, and then a complete implosion, from commanding the grid to fading into the midfield in the span of 71 laps.
It was a painful exhibition of how a fundamental misread of track characteristics can just destroy a car's setup. The rear tire degradation on that Ferrari was alarming.
It was visibly bad.
By lap 4, if you looked at the cornering speed, the rear tires were already cooked. Ferrari fundamentally misunderstood the traction demands of the Austrian circuit compared to Spain.
Okay, stop there. Break that down for the listener. Why does an engine upgrade that worked perfectly in Spain suddenly destroy tires in Austria?
It comes down to the difference between lateral load and longitudinal traction. So Barcelona is filled with long, sweeping corners. The tires are stressed from the side, right? That's lateral load.
Right.
But the Red Bull Ring is entirely different. It's heavy braking, pointing the nose of the car sharply, and then massive longitudinal traction zones, meaning you are asking the rear tires to grip the track and propel you forward in a straight line out of slow corners.
Got it.
Ferrari's upgraded engine delivered a massive spike in torque. But their rear suspension geometry couldn't squat and absorb that sudden power delivery.
Oh.
So every time Hamilton or LECLERC touched the throttle out of turn 3, The suspension was too stiff, the tires couldn't grip, and they just spun against the asphalt.
And what happens to the tire when it does that lap after lap?
Think of the tire rubber like a pencil eraser. If you rub an eraser gently on paper, it grips and does its job. But if you press it violently against a hot surface, it just smears and melts. That's thermal degradation. Ferrari was smearing their rear tires on every single exit.
And watching that happen, it looked to me like it completely broke Charles Leclerc's confidence.
You think so?
Oh, totally. He dropped like a stone from 2nd to 8th place. He got passed by everyone, including a racing bull. Isaac Hadjar literally drove around the outside of a factory Ferrari. I watched Leclerc in the braking zones. He was hesitating. He lacked that killer instinct to brake late and fight in these new cars. He was overdriving to compensate for his own lack of trust in the car.
I strongly disagree with that assessment.
Really? You don't think he looked broken?
You are confusing a driver lacking confidence with a driver surviving a fundamentally broken setup. You cannot brake late when the rear axle is thermally degraded past its operating window.
But to get passed by a racing bull.
If Leclerc stamps on the brakes the way he normally does, all the weight transfers to the front, the overheated rear tires provide zero resistance, the rear steps out, and he spins into the gravel. This is entirely on the Ferrari engineers. They sent him out with a suspension setup that was practically suicidal for the rear tires, given the new engine mapping.
Okay, but then look at the pit wall's reaction. Hamilton starts 3rd. He gets bullied by Verstappen into that premature lap 12 pit stop. He is screaming on the radio about snap oversteer. And during the Sense virtual safety car, Ferrari's strategy team just throws their hands up in a panic. They switch Hamilton to a disastrous 3-stop strategy, a 3-stop. It doomed him to 5th place.
See, that proves my point. The engineering team panicked. Before the VSC, Hamilton was sitting in provisional 3rd. The 3-stop was a desperate, mathematically flawed reaction because the pit wall didn't trust their own tire degradation models anymore.
Because the data was wrong.
The data they had coming into the weekend was useless. They were flying blind, and they let the pressure of the race dictate their strategy instead of dictating the race themselves.
Yeah.
Ferrari beat themselves this weekend.
Well, the theme of this weekend seems to be the razor-thin margin between risk and reward. Ferrari risked the engine torque and cooked their tires, which is exactly why I look at what happened in the McLaren garage, and honestly, I almost understand their hesitation. The midfield was a zone of pure attrition, and McLaren got caught in the middle because they got scared. They had a massive upgrade package, the Macarena spec, and they delayed it. They chose conservative reliability over pure pace.
And it was a massive strategic error. When you are in a relentless development war, you cannot afford to leave theoretical lap times sitting in boxes at the factory out of fear.
No, you really can't.
Lando Norris pays the ultimate price for that timidity. He finishes 7th. He was completely hung out to dry on strategy, forced to stay out far too long in his first stint because he just didn't have the underlying car pace to create a pit window. And he gets undercut by Hadjar's racing bull.
The only reason McLaren isn't facing a crisis management meeting this morning is Oscar Piastri.
Yep.
He starts behind Norris, jumps him at the lights, and executes a brilliant contra strategy, starting on the hard tires when everyone else was on mediums. And he finishes 4th. Piastri maximized a compromise package and honestly saved face for that entire organization.
He did. But McLaren is now heading into the British Grand Prix on the back foot. They lacked the courage to bolt on the new parts. And under the budget cap, if you aren't moving forward, you are moving backward.
Well, speaking of moving backward, Cadillac. I am viscerally outraged by what we saw from that garage.
It was a disaster.
They bring incredibly expensive, massive aerodynamic upgrades, and to be fair, they worked. The car looked visibly faster in the speed traps. But the reliability, it is a complete jerk. Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez suffered double DNFs because of catastrophic brake overheating. They failed to finish in 3 out of the 5 sessions this weekend.
It's an inexcusable engineering oversight. I mean, Bottas retires on the opening laps. Perez manages to pass Williams, reports extreme heat in the cockpit by lap 5, and is in the garage shortly after.
That's embarrassing.
How do you bring a massive upgrade package but fail to calculate the brake cooling requirements for a track that is notoriously punishing on the front axle?
What actually happens to the brakes in that scenario? Why does the whole system just fail like that?
Well, teams try to shrink the brake cooling ducts as much as possible because an open duct creates aerodynamic drag.
Right, you want top speed, so you close them up.
Exactly. Cadillac closed the ducts way too much to maximize the straight-line speed of their new aero package. But carbon fiber brake discs need massive amounts of cold air flowing through them to dissipate heat. When you starve them of air at a heavy braking track like the Red Bull Ring, the discs heat up to over 1,000 degrees Celsius.
1,000 degrees.
Yes. The carbon literally begins to oxidize and disintegrate. The calipers melt, the brake fluid boils.
So they basically set their own car on fire trying to go a tenth of a second faster.
Pretty much.
And the part that really hurts is the financial penalty. You cannot burn through parts like this under the current regulations.
That is the crucial implication here. Under the strict cost cap, this isn't just a bad Sunday. This fundamentally ruins your development cycle for the rest of the year. Every melted carbon fiber brake duct, every destroyed caliper that they have to replace this week, it comes out of the exact same budget pool that was supposed to fund their front wing development in September.
Wow.
They literally burned their autumn development fund to the ground.
And they aren't the only ones staring down a nightmare scenario. Look at Williams. They're just wandering in the wilderness. Carlos Sainz is putting together a quiet, decent run and suddenly suffers a complete electronic blackout. The car just dies on track. Alex Albon finishes 17th. Franco Colapinto is totally invisible and finishes 15th. They are praying for a miracle upgrade at Silverstone just to stay relevant.
The problem for Williams is structural. They lost so much time early in the season, right? Missing the first test, bringing upgrades 5 races late.
Always on the back foot.
Austria just exposed the harsh reality. The base car is fundamentally overweight, it lacks aerodynamic efficiency, and now the complex electronic harnesses are failing under vibration. That is a deeply worrying systemic trend for a team that genuinely thought they had turned a corner last season.
But let's balance the scales here and give credit where it is desperately due. While Williams and Cadillac were busy melting down, Racing Bulls put on an operational clinic. They are the undisputed kings of the midfield right now.
Oh, they completely dominated their competitive tier. It wasn't even close.
Isak Hadjar takes 6th place and overtakes a factory Ferrari on track to do it. Liam Lawson finishes 9th. Arvid Lindblad takes 10th. They have the deepest, most aggressive, and most hungry driver lineup on the grid right now.
What Racing Bulls did brilliantly was execute a flawless operational weekend. They knew exactly where their car belonged in the pecking order. They didn't burn up their tires trying to overextend and fight the Mercedes or the Red Bull.
They stayed in their lane.
They secured track position, executed their pit stops perfectly, and let their drivers aggressively duel it out on track. I mean, Lawson and Lindblad had a fantastic internal battle, trading positions, testing each other's racecraft. It proves that internal competition, when it's managed correctly by the pit wall, it actually elevates the entire team's performance.
It pushes everyone to find that extra 10th. But now we have to look forward. This championship is an absolute pressure cooker. We head straight to Silverstone next week, which is one of the most demanding, high-speed aerodynamic tracks on the calendar.
The stakes couldn't be higher. Can Ferrari figure out their tire degradation, or are these new engine upgrades fundamentally compromising their chassis balance? Because if they get it wrong at Silverstone, those high-speed corners will shred their tires in 5 laps.
And what about McLaren? Are those delayed upgrades finally going to be bolted onto the car? And if they are, will they blow the doors off Mercedes? Because if they hesitate again, Piastri and Norris are going to be sitting ducks for a second straight week.
The technical development war is moving so fast right now that if you stand still for one weekend, you drop 3 places down the grid. Austria proved that nobody is safe and no simulation model is perfect.
Which brings me to a thought that I cannot shake, and it goes far beyond next weekend at Silverstone. It's about the massive elephant in the room. The upcoming driver market for the new 2026 and 2027 regulations.
Oh, the silly season.
Right. If you are a top-tier driver right now, how on earth do you sign a multi-year contract? If the hierarchy of the grid can violently flip from Barcelona to Austria in 7 days, if Ferrari can go from dominant to disastrous and Mercedes from nowhere to winning, how can any driver confidently predict which team will nail the new regulations?
You really can.
You are essentially throwing darts blindfolded. We might see a complete paralysis of the driver market because the performance data is entirely untrustworthy right now.
It is a terrifying prospect for a driver's management team. You lock yourself into a 5-year deal based on this month's wind tunnel data, and by the time you sit in the car, the entire engineering philosophy could be obsolete. The risk profile of these contracts just went through the roof.
Exactly. So I want to know what you think about that at home. Are we about to see The craziest driver market freeze in history because nobody knows who actually has the fastest car anymore. And if you are the team principal at Mercedes right now, who is your actual #1 driver heading into Silverstone? Is it the veteran Russell, who maximizes every gray area, or the rookie Antonelli, who clearly had the raw, terrifying race pace? Get into the comments right now. Go to the Paddock Notes YouTube channel, hit us up on Instagram, tag us on TikTok. I want to see your theories on who actually holds the power in this paddock right now.
And while you are there, make sure you hit subscribe and follow us. We need every single follower to keep bringing you this level of analysis every week.
Seriously, hit subscribe. We need the ad revenue so we can send a charitable donation to the Cadillac Garage to help them pay for their replacement brake calipers. Because after this weekend, they are going to need every single penny they can get. This has been our analysis of the Austrian Grand Prix. The grid is on fire, the engineering models are broken, and we will see you at Silverstone. Keep your foot down.